So the women that the people that I work with right now who are in the medical field have used flower essences before.
Right.
They know it works and they just want some guidance. And a lot of them also do prescribe to their patients. So that's another thing, like that's a way that I work in concert with doctors, is that some of them become students of mine and they learn how to use essences so that they can prescribe for their patients.
I'm looking for. Hi, I'm Scott Ware, the publisher of Radiance Magazine, which can be found at radiancemm.com and at over 600 locations in Southern California. And I am with Dina Saalisi, who is certainly a great holistic practitioner and an expert in floral essences. Is that the right way to say it, Dina?
Flower essences, but close.
Okay. Absolutely. And it makes sense to me that we know that herbs and things have properties that help with our health. Flower essences, would you say they're even more powerful or just differently powerful?
Oh, well, I would say they're very different and probably the same amount powerful. My career as a holistic healer probably began as an herbalist, like eons ago. And I think I was drawn to it because the physical properties that herbs have really do heal physical illness, right?
Right. Yep.
But so with flower essences, it's different because we're working with the level of subtle energy. So what that means is that we're not really working in the physical property anymore. We're working more with the spiritual property or the energy of the flower. And so in this way, what I find in my health coaching practice is everyone gets flower essences while I'm coaching them. And it really speeds up the healing process because it's working at this really deep layer of emotional awareness, whether or not we're conscious of it.
And I was going to get into the emotions of it. So when we talk about healing, we talk about holistic healers, for instance, being holistic is mind, body, spirit, integrating all of that, taking into account the whole person.
Right.
And when we're ill or when we're wanting to heal from something, many of us have come to know that there's an emotional root to it, so that rather than just going to an allopathic doctor, getting a pill that is directly targeted for something, we want to heal it permanently. Isn't that right? And that's what you help people do?
Yeah, and that's interesting that you use the word permanently, because for me, it's like permanent healing means that we're always on a path toward healing, right?
Sure.
That's the homeostasis, right? Like just trying to create balance constantly. And so that's like, I get a lot of clients who come to me when they're sort of at the end of their rope with mainstream medicine, right? Because they've been to doctors, they've tried pills, they've tried the operation, and they know there's something more there. So, first of all, they're kind of coming with some self-awareness that there's something deeper. And at that deeper layer, we're always finding an emotional component. And so this was Dr. Bach who invented flower essence therapy back in 1930. He was a physician, and he was tired of seeing patients and only being able to prescribe based on their symptoms, on their physical symptoms. Sure. And he saw that people with the same physical illness would present differently in what emotional state they were in. And so he started prescribing based on emotions. And so at first he was working solely in homeopathy, which is a subtle energy medicine practice. And then he sort of was like, well, okay, homeopathy is great, but it's still a little dense. He was like, I know there's a method that's even simpler and more accessible. And he landed on the energy of 38 specific flowers. And so it's been being used in worldwide. Over 60 countries use flower essence medicine, and it works. It's it is a little bit magical, but the more we're getting to kind of I want to say validate quantum physics, right? Like that everything is energy, the
Yes.
more it makes sense. It's really not that far out there when we look at it.
Well, so you're on the cover of the July, August 2021 Radiance.
Yeah.
And you actually, the featured article in here is a case study that you put together. So it's very detailed. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that was a powerful relationship I had with this client. So it was a woman who was diagnosed with skin cancer in her 40s.
Mm.
And she was an interesting person. And like I said, usually by the time people get to me, they have some self-awareness. So she was like, okay, I'm going to go in for the radiation. And she recognized right away that there was something that felt very uncomfortable about it that was beyond the fear of cancer. And so she wanted to work on the emotional level. So a friend of a friend said, have you tried flower essences? And she called me, and right away, we began working before she went in for treatment. So she had like maybe 3 weeks before she started treatment. And right away, she was really self-aware about the fact that she didn't like to ask for help when she was ailing. So this was a big one because she had to ask a neighbor for a ride home from the doctor, and she had to ask for friends to help pick up her kids from school. And so that's kind of what we focused on. And it was interesting because she went through treatment, and sure, fear came up and doubt came up, and we worked with that. But by the end of it, she was like in such a good place, and you can read the case study, that I said to her, oh, I forgot, I have to ask you, how do you feel physically, like by our last session? And she was like, physically, I feel better than I felt in my whole life, because I have more of a realization about my emotional awareness. And that really is what got her through. And I've worked with several people through cancer treatment, and I cannot say enough how working with subtle energy like flower essences, homeopathy, really supports the conventional medicine. Yeah, amazingly.
Very interesting. Do you work with any medical doctors in congruence with them?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Currently, I don't work alongside doctors. I have some clients who are physicians, and I have colleagues who are doctors that we kind of trade information.
So you have clients who are doctors. Talk about that a little bit. Are they different than the regular patient or client?
Well, so interestingly, they're different in that they're coming to me because they're doctors who believe in holistic medicine, which we all know that all doctors aren't like that. Although more and more are becoming like that because they see that it works. And it's really like based on this empirical knowledge, like they hear it from clients, they try it themselves. So the women that the people that I work with right now who are in the medical field have used flower essences before. Right. They know it works, and they just want some guidance. And a lot of them also do prescribe to their patients. So that's another thing, like that's a way that I work in concert with doctors, is that some of them become students of mine, and they learn how to use essences so that they can prescribe for their patients.
I'm looking forward to the time I go to a doctor and we have that talk. Maybe it's only for 6 or 7 minutes because, they got to keep on the run and go to the next patient, the next one. But I would love for one of them to just whip out of their pocket a flower essence. So, why don't we try this? Is that going to, well, they would probably have to advertise themselves as an integrative health specialist to do that. Otherwise, the insurance companies might pull their certification.
Well, there's different ways. Actually, this is interesting. When I went through Bach training, one of my classes, I did this up in Oregon, and one of the classes, one of the students was a head nurse at Sonoma General Hospital in Northern California. Right. And she worked with essences all the time. She gave them to clients, although she couldn't prescribe them. She just said, try this, it might help. But so she saw that rescue remedy, something that I think many people are familiar with, it's Bach's 5-flower combination, and it's for acute stress. So she was recognizing how rescue remedy could help people who were in the hospital, right, who've just undergone surgery. And so she actually, what she was able to do is she couldn't get it into the nursing unit, but what she was able to do was she talked the hospital into getting it into the gift shop. And so then she was directing families and patients just go buy it down at the gift shop. And that's how they were using it. And they're still using it that way.
Now, which of the 5 flowers are part of that stress kit?
Yeah, so Star of Bethlehem, which is the #1 remedy for trauma, and that's any trauma. It's either acute trauma or trauma that's happened 20 years ago. It addresses it, and it's Star of Bethlehem is this beautiful white lily type flower. And then Mimulus, which is one of the monkey flowers, and that addresses fear, any fear that can be named. Clematis, which is the beautiful white clematis flower. And clematis is interesting because that helps with getting us back into body when we dissociate. And anyone who's ever experienced trauma knows that feeling where you kind of go out of your body. And so Bach thought that that was important to bring someone back into their body to kind of expedite the healing. And then cherry plum for terror, for extreme terror, and rock rose. No, cherry plum, I'm sorry, cherry plum is for fear of losing control. So when we're afraid of, oh my God, I feel like I'm losing my mind right now, and you kind of need to pull it back in. And then rock rose for terror, when we feel terrorized. So of course, each of those flowers can be used individually, and then they can be used in combination with other flowers. But those are the 5 that he saw as kind of important for when we have an emergency, an accident or something extreme that we need to address, and we can't kind of think of what do I need?
Sure. I know you have a class coming up in September, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But in the meantime, if someone is watching this and they're experiencing these things, can they go to a local market and pick up flowers, or is there the essences in oil form, or what could they do right now for themselves?
Right. So they're actually in little 1/2-ounce bottles, and they're to be taken internally. So they're completely different from essential oils, right, which are actually the oil extract of the plant. And actually, I do have a video on YouTube, if you can just Google my name, and it's how to make a flower essence. And it's a great, a 6-minute video about how they're made, and it explains what they are. But, Rescue Remedy, I think you can find pretty much anywhere right now. I know Pharmaca, Whole Foods, they all sell it, and your local shop should also sell it. The individual essences are a little harder to get. Flower essence services, I'd like to direct people to, because they sell kits, and they're very accessible. But you could also just Google Bach flower essences, and you can buy a kit. My class, which we will talk about in a minute, one of the packages that I offer with my class is it includes a full set of remedies, because I want you to be able to start formulating right away.
Oh, very nice. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and talk about that class. I participated in one of your classes once, and it was very nice. It was very, not only do you have a great presence and you're very wise, you know what you're doing, but it just, I felt like, even at the end, I didn't have a flower essence with me, but I almost felt like I was getting it from you. Do you feel like energetically that you're able to put that out? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. And I do feel like energetically I'm able to put that out. I also feel like that flower energy is all around us, luckily, right? The energies of nature are everywhere, and they're ready to be touched, at will. So I do think sometimes we can just simply set the intention. And that's part of what I love about teaching flower essence therapy, okay? Because it's as if we're using the archetype of the flowers. I truly believe that the energy is in each flower, but even just archetypally, when we can tune into the energy, the vibration that each flower holds, and the challenge, the emotional challenge that it relates to, it's sort of like astrology, right? When we know our sign and what the pitfalls are for our sign, we can kind of look out for them. It creates awareness, right?
Right.
So the same with the flowers. When we start, I like to tell people I think in flowers, and I do. When I talk with a friend, or when I hear about someone's challenge, I automatically think, oh, white chestnut, or oh, mimulus. And it's, we do that with friends. Oh, that person must be a Taurus, right? They're really forceful. But it helps us to connect with the energy so that we can grow and kind of heal and you know, extract the healing that's there. So the thing that I love about the class is that I teach it the way Bach intended, which was he categorized the 38 flowers into 7 specific categories of emotional challenge. And so I teach it this way. And so right away, like the second class is fear. Right away, fear. Like we can all relate to fear.
Sure.
And how interesting that there's like 5 different ways that fear shows up, you know? And so when we start like deciphering it in this way, yeah, like your mind is already like, oh, that's interesting. When we start deciphering it in this way, it creates so much empowerment, so much awareness that then when fear comes up, we can tune into it right away and we can touch the energy and work with it. It's not just like, oh, I'm afraid, I shut down, or I do something negative when I'm afraid. You know, maybe I go eat or I do some bad behavior. It helps us to really connect with it so that it can be worked with.
You know, on one level, we talk about practical applications or direct application. A week ago, I walked through a park barefoot, and for the intention of if it feels good and to do the earthing, the grounding. And 20 minutes later, I felt so high. I don't know if I would have felt so high and so calm and at peace if I hadn't set the intention. I mean, I know there are benefits to being in nature just that alone, but because I think I set the intention and I said, I'm going to open myself and be open to the positive energies of this grass and the roots of these trees and touching some trees. And I believe that just amplified the good feelings I was feeling. I meant you touched on that a moment ago about the same thing. It's like they are all around us, flowers and their essences and those, which you could call magical properties. So they say magic, we call it magic when it's just science that we don't understand yet. It could be said that way, perhaps. Yeah. Is that what you mean? And no matter where you are, you can just tap into that and bring in what your intention is set for.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I do think that the intention amplifies it, like you just described. And I think that nature is the one ultimate source of energy that nourishes all living things on the planet. So I think it can't be ignored. And I mean, the fact that we use flowers to show love, or that we use flowers, you know, on our birthdays, it's like, it's not by accident. It's not just because they're pretty. It's because we all sense that there's an energetic quality there that the humans can tune into, the vibration, right? So yes, setting the intention is wonderful. I also think that we've all had the experience where we didn't set the intention and perhaps we were outside and perhaps we didn't feel so good and we saw a butterfly float by, or we saw a rose and stopped to smell it. And it elevates your mood. It just does. And we've all had that experience. So even when you don't set the intention, it's there. But yeah, setting the intention, my gosh, I mean, I'm a health coach and I give people practices. I would say the main practice I give people is go out into nature. Even if you do it for 5 minutes, 3 times a day in between work, right, it heals, and everybody responds to that. Like everybody I ask, like, what's something you do for nourishment? Like the first thing they say is, oh, I go outside, I'm in nature, or, you know, yeah.
It's I heard this phrase, this quote recently: nature is our nature.
Yeah.
And you mentioned just how beautiful and delicate and subtle flowers look. I think isn't that also sort of how nature or the universe or God or whatever you want to call it is tipping us off to, hey, there's some subtle energies here. Notice the subtle colors, the beautiful universal artwork at play that actually sort of pulls you in and invites you to get subtle, if you will. Isn't that right?
Fragrance. I mean, natural fragrance. It is
Yes.
pretty magical. And I do think because they're all around, we do sort of take it for granted. You know, we just expect, oh, the flowers are there. But, you know, I really do think the time has come for us to tune into more deeply into the subtle essences that are all around. And just really take that and work with it so that we can heal ourselves, others, and the planet. Like, I do feel like that's the ultimate deal, is that when we're connecting with nature, when we're really paying homage and feeling the reverence and the awe and the delight, like feeling the joy in it, we really are helping to heal the wounding of the planet.
What are some remedies that you're called upon often to create for people, aside from the rescue one you were talking about? Are there some other more popular ones?
Yeah, I did mention white chestnut when I was throwing it out there, and that's because I think white chestnut is the remedy of the time. It's so white chestnut is the buckeye tree, the big white flowers that are super smelly and beautiful, and they grow like up into the heavens. And so the challenge, the emotional challenge of white chestnut is overthinking. Like when we just get
Mhm.
caught in our heads and we spin the wheels and we can't make it stop. And so that leads to a lot of insomnia. I hear a lot of that, more than ever, especially with the current health crisis, right? Which, so it's like, it's a type of fear that is a worry, right? So we're worrying. So the white chestnut remedy, it helps to bring us back to like the present moment.
Mm.
Like I'm just alive in this moment, and all I have to do is be. And so when we're able to practice being, right, we're not constantly spinning our wheels. And
Right.
the other side of that is I feel like in our culture now, it's like we do hold intellect over intuition, right? So
Right.
I think what we're discovering as humans too is the more we're able to balance those parts, like tune into our intuition and balance it with our intellect, then we're really operating from a holistic way of being, right? Like we're
Right.
not meant to just be thinking minds. And so
Yes.
that's why it's kind of gone into this place of like, we're stuck. We get stuck in mental torture, as it were.
Is there maybe a short little meditation or exercise that you could do with us right now, or talk about, that people could take for themselves and utilize? Something that comes to
Yeah.
mind that,
Well, I think, when I'm doing healing plans for people, the first thing that I like, the first energy that I like everyone to be able to tune into is the energy of our bodies, right?
mm,
So
mm,
that's like, again, anxiety is like just a huge one for most of us these days in this busy world that we live in. So
mm,
when we're anxious, we're going out of body. So we want to kind of be able to always bring it back to body. So I mean, rather, I could do something really quick with you right now. And then I also have recorded meditations on Insight Timer that people can tune into, and I have some
oh,
body practices. But
okay.
one thing I like to do, like if I get caught in anxiety, if I start to spin out,
Mm,
and okay, so one thing I tell people is always when you're looking down or keeping your eyes closed, you're going into body. But when you look up, like if you're trying to figure something out and you look up, you are going into mind. So always to bring the gaze down.
oh,
And then another like just really powerful way to be in body is you can tense up any part of your body. So when you notice yourself kind of drifting off and feeling anxious, focus on any feeling in your body. So you can curl your toes, you can find your breath, you can clench your fists and then release.
right.
And then just come back to the present moment. So it's really just focusing on a bodily sensation. And that's really it. And that's like kind of the simple, quick way.
I love both of those. And the first one you mentioned is really key. I'm doing it right now. I just looked up. I do it all the time.
Yep.
Going up there.
Yeah.
I can tend to overthink at times. And so you're talking about going down so that I'm going in here, because the body really is speaking to us if we would just listen, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The body knows everything. It holds everything. And you could do even like a little exercise. Like I love to do automatic writing where if I'm stuck, I'll just ask myself a question and go inward and just write like the first things that come into awareness. So it's like my favorite question to ask is, what do I know to be true? What do I know to be true? And I ask people this
Mm,
at the healer's circle kind of spontaneously because I want the first answer. If you could
yes.
just try it right now and look down when you're asking, what do I know to be true?
I mean, first thing comes to mind for me is love.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's many ways that's expressed and felt and experienced. And it's funny because, okay, so right there, that's awesome, because I don't think I would have got that answer going up there.
Well, you can do it both ways. You could try it first by looking up and then see what comes, and you can play with the two, right?
Sure.
Because it's all about creating awareness and it's all about creating inner strength. So I mean, this is what I do for a living, but this is also what I do for life. Like
Yeah,
every day, like with myself, I really
right.
play with these practices because my goal is to just like develop my whole sense of self. And now I'm going to be 52 this year, and it's only getting better. It's only getting better because I go deeper into like my authentic sense of self.
Right.
And so what more could we do? It's like, I find it incredibly enjoyable, to do these kinds of healing practices. And I hope that other people do too. And I think that the more you do them, the better it gets. So it's like, you just practice all the time. Like we spend a lot of time practicing negative self-talk or practicing negative behaviors. So it's like, let's
Sure.
just balance some of that out, right?
Sure. Exactly.
Yeah.
At certain points in this conversation, you mentioned quantum, we talked about energy, and at first some people could think, oh, that's a bit woo-woo, it's a bit out there, but the rest of our conversation has actually been very grounded just in a sense of self and awareness of just some subtler things. So, woo-woo, when people use that phrase, it sounds detached and separate from us, but really it's just that, like you said, this society reveres intellect over intuition, and you're talking about the other way around. And I mean, I know people on their deathbed, when they're thinking about their life or they're ruminating, they're not going into their intellect. Their heart is, it's about that. So, isn't it more about that? Can you speak to that a little bit, and the energy and frequency and that moving through us?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's all about that. And it's funny because, the woo-woo thing is funny because I feel like, sometimes people will say it and they don't mean any harm. It's like, kind of touching on it lightly. But I
Right.
feel like it's because we've just forgotten. We just, and I mean, as the humanity, we've forgotten. Like it's
Right.
been decades and hundreds of years since we were, when we were a lot younger, when the earth was younger,
Mm.
and it was like all of this knowledge, this wisdom was just there. And I mean, when you think of like you're saying, energy healing or spirituality, it's like it's the most authentic way of being that there is. And it's also the most ancient, right? So it holds roots in our ancient memory. And so that's why it appeals to most people. Like, even if you're making fun of it on some level, it's appealing to you. And I think I mentioned in
Sure.
my article that I wrote that I taught a class, and one student had a hard time with the visualization process. And she was just like, I feel silly. I feel silly. I feel like I'm on a Saturday Night Live skin. First of all, I was like, should I be so lucky that Saturday Night Live mocks me one day? Like that would mean
Right.
that would
Yeah.
mean it, that would be great. But I was just like, your experience is the truth. So if you're doing a visualization exercise and you're experiencing something
Mm.
and you're connecting with an energy that you can't explain, but it's creating emotion, or it's bringing up maybe memories of the past, or it's giving you an answer to a solution for the future. What could be more real than that if you're experiencing that?
Well, and if you believe, even if you don't have mystical or spiritual beliefs, but if you believe in nature and that there's some purpose or some symmetry, that these things were put there for us for healing, not just to look pretty and to smell nice.
Right.
Same with herbs. That I mean, it's been said that everything that ails us, the cure is out there in nature. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And I see that all the time, all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Dina, how can people reach out to you or learn more about you?
Yay. Well, they could get on my website. It's just dinasaalisi.com. Let's see, I just rebooted my Facebook page, so I know that we're connected on Facebook. Instagram, Dina Saalisi Healing Arts. And yeah, I'm out there. So I do look forward to connecting with anyone who wants to connect. I have many ways to connect. I have the bot class coming up in September. I have Healer Circle, meets 8 times a year, which the first Healer Circle is always free for the first time for anyone who wants to join and check it out. And yeah, there's more to come. There's more to come, and it's all evolving. So I look forward to connecting. Yeah.
And like you said, you're getting better. You know, you said you're about 52 and things are getting better. And I imagine you're getting, I mean, we're getting wiser and smarter, but also just more expansive and with more ability to receive more and learn more. It's funny when you talk about learning things in that sense, in an intuitive sense, it's, I tend to want to go into the sort of 3D linear way, but it really isn't about that. It's just being more and more open to receiving more and more of the gifts that nature provides.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think just it's, you know, strengthening the trust in all of it, right?
And what do you mean by that?
Huh. So what do I mean? Because you're saying that we're all born intuitive beings. Like it's
Mm,
there. It's
yeah.
absolutely there. We've all connected with it, whether we know it or not, at one time or another. So I think it's trusting that like you're saying, that nature was put here, or we were put in within the sphere of nature for a reason, and that our intuitive gifts are as important, trusting that they're as important as our intellectual gifts.
So it seems to me, if I'm not trusting, if I want to egoically use my ego to, well, I'm going to do this or that, instead of just saying, you know what, I'm going to trust the universe is going to work with me to heal me or to show me the way, to show me where my emotions may have gotten out of hand or where I get anxious, and just and sort of collaborate with nature instead of trying to impose will over that. I know my ego knows better. Is that, am I getting to something there?
You are, and I love the word collaborate, because my first thought when you were saying, you know, when you started talking, is like, oh, asking people to trust, that could be a scary process, right? That could be
Mm,
scary. But when we look at it in terms of collaboration, that to me takes some of the fear out of it. Like it's not me out there alone, you know, just trusting or just going along with what feels right, and maybe I don't know what feels right. It's
mm,
about collaborating with nature and recognizing that it's not going to lead me astray, right? So it's like it is a relearning. There is a learning curve, I feel like, because of, you know, we were taught, like, if we can figure it out, if we can know from up here, then we're safe. But the
mm.
truth is that safety is on the inside. And so when we really exercise, learn how to work with the intuitive piece, then we truly feel safe. And so then our intellect is like firing even stronger. Like that's the thing I see, because I am
Ah,
an intellectual person. I am.
sure.
And it's funny, like I'm not just like, oh, I'm just going with my intuition. I really try to balance both. And I mean, I write books, I write courses, I teach. So I have to be intellectual.
Well,
But
case
if I
study.
tried, yeah, but if I tried to write a book, if I tried to teach a class based on my intellect, it would be so boring. It would fail. It wouldn't work. Like for me, it's like I find myself to be first and foremost a creative person. And so
Mm,
creativity is the perfect example of the beautiful balance of intuition and intellect.
mm,
Because when we're getting when the muse comes to visit and we're getting an inspiration, that's purely intuitive. We trust, we write it down. Oh, this might even sound crazy, but I'm going to go with it. And then the creative force that actually makes us create it, like now I'm actually typing it out, that's like the intellect. So it's
sure.
a balance. So I'm saying everything needs to be beautifully balanced in order for it to be whole. So that brings us back to the holistic piece.
Yeah, I feel if I'm writing something and if I'm being intuitive, I feel like it's more of a warm hug
Mm,
and not just a dry intellectual piece.
yeah,
And that's different. I would rather read something that is taking my spirit into account and not just my brain. I guess one way of saying it.
yeah, yeah,
Um, anyway. But
yeah.
I'm definitely inspired to get some flower essences and more flowers, and just to pay attention more, and just to go into them and find out more about these 38 flowers that Bach isolated as being the most potent healers. It sounds like.
Yeah, and I mean, there are, now like the Flower Essence Society in Northern California, they're like second in line from Bach. They've been doing it since 1980, and they have about 120 flowers that they work with. I work with about 50 of theirs, so I do expand out. But okay, so Bach died in 6 years after he began the system. So who's to know where it would have gone? I mean, like I said, every single living thing has energy. So we can definitely tune into the energy, and plants, rocks, animals, all of it. It's all valuable. But I always start with the Bach 38 because I wanna start with something that people can actually assimilate in like a small dose and then expand from there.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Well, again, they can find you at dinasaalisi.com. Your name's on the screen. They can get the spelling of it. And thank you so much for doing this interview and being on the cover of Radiance.
Yeah.
It's a great article. You can find it right now at radiancemm.com. And thank you for doing this interview, Dina.
Thank you, Scott. Always beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. And everyone, thank you for watching your interviews. This on Xpnsion Network and social media. I'm Scott Ware, the publisher of Radiance Magazine. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
I get fan mail. People will like, clients, students, they'll send me pictures of flowers that they saw on their walk, and they'll be like, look at this, she's beautiful, and I spent time with her. And there's so much healing to be had, like simply in that, like just simply pausing and being in awe of nature. That's it, right?
Exactly.